My name is Emma Ashford, and despite everything I've achieved, I was never good enough for my family. But that night, everything changed. Before I share my story, let me know where you're watching from and hit like and subscribe if you've ever had to walk away from someone who refused to see your worth. The view from my corner office at Meridian Asset Management stretched across the Charleston harbor, but I barely noticed it anymore. At 31, I was the youngest senior portfolio manager in the firm's history, managing over $2 billion. In client assets, my Hermes bag sat perfectly positioned on my mahogany desk, next to the Crystal Award I received for outstanding performance in alternative investments. Yet none of it mattered when my phone buzzed with a text from my mother. Vivienne, your father's 60th birthday dinner is Saturday. Black tie, try not to embarrass us this time. Mother, I stared at the message. My manicured finger is tightening. Around my iPhone, try not to embarrass us this time, the words cut deeper than any market crash ever could. You see, my family, the Ashfords of Kiowa Island, had built their fortune in real estate development 3 generations ago. Old money, old rules, old prejudices. My father, Harrison Ashford, controlled every aspect of our family dynamic with the same iron fist he used to run Ashford Properties. My mother, Constance, played the perfect society wife, hosting charity, galas, and maintaining our family's pristine reputation. Then there was me, the daughter who chose numbers over charity work, Wall Street over wedding planning, independence over their approval. My younger brother, Marcus, 28 and fresh, out of his 3rd failed startup, remained the golden child. He lived in our family's guest house, drove cars Dad bought him, and spent his days playing golf at the country club. Yet somehow I was the disappointment. I walked to my window, watching the evening light dance across the water. Charleston had always been home, but lately it felt more like a beautiful prison. Every success I achieved seemed to widen the gap between who I was and who my family wanted me to be. My assistant, Jennifer, knocked softly. Ms. Ashford? The Hartwell account documents are ready for your review. Thank you, Jen, and please call Cartier. I need to speak with their private client services. She nodded and left, probably wondering why I needed to call one of the world's most exclusive jewelry houses. But I had an idea, a way to show my family that their daughter had not just succeeded, but had surpassed every expectation they'd ever had. If they wanted a gift worthy of Harrison Ashford's 60th birthday, I'd give them one they'd never forget. The next morning, I sat in Cartier's private viewing room on King Street, one of only 3 such exclusive spaces in the Southeast. The manager, a distinguished man named Felipe, had flown in from New York specifically for our appointment. Ms. Ashford, based on your requirements, I have something quite extraordinary. He opened a velvet-lined case, revealing a vintage Cartier Santos Dumont watch with a platinum case and diamond-set bezel. This particular piece belonged to a Charleston shipping magnate in the 1920s. It's been in our private collection for decades. I lifted the watch, feeling its weight. Substantial, meaningful, perfect. How much? For this piece, considering its provenance and rarity, $85,000. Without hesitation, I nodded. I'll take it. Felipe's eyebrows raised slightly. He'd clearly expected negotiations, financing discussions, or at least a moment of consideration, but I'd been making split-second decisions worth millions for years. This was just another investment, though this one was in something far more precious than money. I could already picture my father's face when he saw it. Maybe, finally, he'd understand that his daughter hadn't just survived in the corporate world. She conquered it. That evening, I called my mother to confirm the dinner details. Vivienne, darling. Her voice carried that familiar tone of measured disappointment. You are planning to attend, aren't you? And please tell me you're not bringing another one of those work colleagues as a date. I'll be there, Mother, alone as always. Good, and what are you planning to wear? Nothing too corporate. I hope this is a family celebration, not a board meeting. I bit back my response. After all of these years, she still spoke to me like I was a teenager who couldn't dress herself. I'll be appropriately dressed, and I have a very special gift for Dad. Oh, Vivienne. Her sigh was audible. You know your father doesn't expect anything expensive. He'd be perfectly happy with a nice bottle of wine or a book. You don't need to try so hard. The words hit me like a physical blow. You don't need to try so hard, as if everything I'd accomplished was just desperate overcompensation, as if my success was somehow embarrassing to them. I think you'll like what I've chosen. I said quietly, just don't spend money you can't afford, dear. I know your generation thinks credit cards are magic, but debt is nothing to be ashamed of. We all live beyond our means sometimes. I stood in my penthouse kitchen, looking out at the city lights, my reflection ghost-like in the window. She thought I was in debt. She thought I was struggling, pretending to be successful while drowning in credit card payments like some desperate social climber. I'll see you Saturday, Mother. 7 sharp, darling, and Vivienne. Try to smile. It's supposed to be a celebration. After I hung up, I poured myself a glass of wine, a $300 bottle of Burgundy that I bought without a second thought. I could afford it. I could afford anything I wanted. But in my mother's eyes, I was still the little girl playing dress-up in grown-up clothes. Saturday couldn't come soon enough. The Ashford family stay on Kiowa Island was exactly what you'd expect from 3 generations of Charleston wealth. Sprawling, pristine, and intimidating, Spanish moss dripped from ancient oaks. And the circular drive was lined with luxury cars that belonged to my parents' closest friends. I pulled up in my Tesla Model S Plaid, the Cartier box secure in my purse. My black Valentino dress had cost more than most people's monthly rent, but to my family it would just be that nice black dress Vivienne wore. The front door opened before I could knock, revealing Marcus in a tuxedo that probably cost more than my car payment, if I had one. "Viv, you made it," he said, pulling me into a hug that smelled of expensive cologne and privilege. "Dad's been asking about you." "Has he?" I followed him into the foyer where crystal chandeliers cast elegant shadows on marble floors. "What did he say?" "Oh, Dad, he's just proud you're doing well at your little investment firm." Little investment firm. Meridian Asset Management was one of the most prestigious boutique firms in the country. But to Marcus, anything that wasn't Ashford. Properties was just a hobby. The dining room was filled with Charleston's elite judges, businessmen, politicians, and their perfectly coiffed wives. Everyone turned as I entered, offering polite smiles and air kisses that felt more like social obligations than genuine affection. Vivienne. My father's voice boomed across the room. Harrison Ashford at 60 was still imposing, tall, silver-haired, and commanding. He embraced me, and for a moment, I felt like his little girl again. "You look beautiful, sweetheart. Happy birthday." "Daddy?" The childhood nickname slipped out before I could stop it. "Now, I hope you didn't spend your entire paycheck on a gift," he said with a laugh that made several guests chuckle. "You know I'm impossible to shop for," my mother appeared at. His elbow resplendent in pearls and cream silk. "Vivienne, dear, you look lovely. Did you get that dress on sale?" He cracked at my neck. "No, Mother, I didn't." "Well, it's very nice, very professional." The way she said professional made it sound like a character flaw. Dinner was a production, 5 courses, perfectly orchestrated by our family's longtime staff. I sat between my great-aunt Millicent and family friend Judge Richardson, both of whom peppered me with questions about my career phase and when I planned to settle down and give your parents grandchildren. "Vivienne's always been ambitious," my mother explained to the table. "Ever since she was little, she's wanted to prove she can do anything the boys can do. Nothing wrong with that," Judge Richardson said kindly. "Though I imagine it's difficult, being a woman in such a competitive field. It has its challenges," I replied diplomatically. "I'm sure it does," my father interjected. "But Vivienne's always been tough. Sometimes I think she's tougher than—" Marcus here. Marcus laughed. "That's because she is. I've seen her spreadsheets. They're terrifying. More laughter." Everyone thought it was charming how the family investment expert was reduced to spreadsheets and tough, as if my career was just an amusing quirk rather than a serious profession. Finally, it was time for gifts. The presents were displayed on a side table. Expensive bottles of wine, first edition books, golf accessories, and artwork. Each gift was opened with appropriate fanfare, followed by polite applause. Now, what did our Vivienne bring? My father asked, his voice carrying across the room. I stood, my heart pounding, and retrieved the Cartier box from my purse. The room fell silent as I placed it in his hands. It's a vintage Cartier Santis Dumont, I said as he opened the box. From the 1920s, it belonged to a Charleston shipping magnate. The room was silent. My father lifted the watch, his eyes widening as he examined the platinum case and diamond bezel. Even in the dining room's soft lighting, it was clearly extraordinary. My God, Vivienne, he whispered. This is museum quality. It's beautiful. Someone murmured, absolutely. Stunning, added another voice for a moment. I felt the warmth of accomplishment, of finally giving my father something that truly impressed him. Then I saw my mother's face. She was pale, her lips pressed into a thin line. She leaned toward my father and whispered something in his ear. His expression changed, the wonder replaced by concern. Emma, he said quietly, this must have cost a fortune. Are you sure you can afford something like this? The question hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Suddenly, every eye in the room was on me, and I could see the same thought reflected in each face. Poor Emma, overextending herself to impress everyone. I can afford it, Dad. Sweetheart, my mother's voice was gentle but firm. There's no shame in returning something if you've gotten it over your head. We all make impulse purchases sometimes. I didn't make an impulse purchase. I chose this specifically for you. Of course you did. Dear, but perhaps you should think about your future. You're not getting any younger, and if you're spending this kind of money on gifts. She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. Everyone understood. I was a single woman in her 30s, wasting money I couldn't afford on desperate attempts to buy my family's approval. Marcus cleared his throat. What my wife always says is that it's the thought that counts. Dad would be just as happy with something from your heart, you know? Your wife, Marcus's wife, who had never worked a day in her life and spent her time planning charity luncheons with my mother's crowd. I'm sure Emma meant well, Judge Richardson said diplomatically, though perhaps she should consider her own. Financial security first. The conversation continued around me, but I barely heard it. They were discussing me as if I weren't there. As if I were a child who'd gotten caught stealing from the cookie jar. I think, my father said finally, that we should all remember that family is about love, not expensive gestures. He closed the watch box and set it aside, then pulled me into a hug. Thank you, sweetheart. But next time, maybe just bring yourself. That's gift enough. The room erupted in gentle applause and murmurs of approval. Everyone nodded sagely, as if my father had just delivered profound wisdom about the true meaning of family. But I heard what they were really saying. Poor Emma, always trying so hard. Someone should teach her that she doesn't need to buy love. I excused myself to the powder room where I stared at my reflection in the gilt-framed mirror. My makeup was perfect, my hair immaculate, my dress flawless, but underneath it all, I felt like a fraud. Maybe they were right. Maybe I was just a desperate woman trying to buy acceptance with money I couldn't afford. Except I could afford it. I could afford 10 of those watches without even thinking about it. And that's when the idea hit me when I returned to the dining room. Dessert was being served, an elaborate chocolate souffle that our chef had been preparing for hours. The conversation had moved on to other topics, but I could still feel the undercurrent of pity directed toward me. Emma, my great-aunt Millicent said as I sat down, your mother tells me you're doing well at that investment company. Do you enjoy working with other people's money? The question was innocent enough, but something in her tone suggested she viewed my career as slightly distasteful, like I was a professional gambler rather than a licensed financial advisor. I do, I replied carefully, though I should clarify. I don't just work with other people's money, I manage my own portfolio as well. Oh, how nice, she said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. I'm sure you're very careful with your savings. Savings as if I were keeping my money in a piggy bank. Actually, I said, my voice growing stronger, I should probably clarify something about tonight. The table quieted and my father looked concerned, probably worried that I was about to make an emotional scene about the watch I gave you. Dad, I didn't buy it on credit. I didn't go into debt. I paid cash. Emma, my mother said gently, you don't need to. $85,000, I continued. Cash from my checking account. The silence was deafening. Judge Richardson set down his fork. My mother's hand went to her throat. I know you all think I'm struggling financially, I said, my voice calm and clear. I know you think I'm trying to buy love or approval or acceptance. But I'm not struggling. I'm not in debt. I'm not living paycheck to paycheck. My father was staring at me with an expression I couldn't read. Emma, what are you saying? I'm saying that I make 7 figures a year, Dad. I'm saying that my bonus last year was more than most people's total annual salary. I'm saying that the little investment firm I work for manages over $50 billion in assets, and I personally oversee about 4% of that. Marcus's face had gone pale. You don't mean. I mean exactly what I said. I am wealthy, not comfortable. Not doing well, wealthy. I own my penthouse outright. I drive a car that costs more than those people's houses. I have an investment portfolio worth more than some small country's GDP. The room was so quiet I could hear the grandfather clock ticking in the hallway, and yet, I continued, standing from my chair. Every time I come to a family gathering, you treat me like I'm playing dress up, like I'm a child pretending to be successful, like I'm embarrassing myself and you. My mother was shaking her head. Emma, we never meant. You absolutely meant. Mother, you've been meaning it for years. Every comment about my career phase, every suggestion that I need to think about my future, every assumption that I can't afford to take care of myself, you've been telling me exactly what you. Think of me, I walked to the side table and picked up the Cartier box. This watch? It represents less than 1 day's income for me, 1 day. I could buy a dozen of them and not notice the expense. Then why didn't you tell us? My father asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Because I shouldn't have to. Because my success should be evident. Because you should be proud of what I've accomplished instead of worrying about whether I can afford to feed myself. I held up the watch box. You know what? I think I'll keep this. Consider it a reminder of the night I finally realized that no amount of money, no level of success, no achievement will ever be enough for this family. The room erupted in protests and explanations, but I was already walking toward the door. Emma, please, my father called after me. You're overreacting. I stopped and turned back. Am I? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like I've finally started reacting appropriately. Where are you going? My mother asked, her voice breaking. Home, I said simply. To my penthouse, in my expensive car, with my expensive watch, and tomorrow. I'm going to continue living my expensive life, with or without your approval. But as I reached the front door, I realized leaving wasn't enough. They still didn't understand. They still saw me as the dramatic daughter having a tantrum I needed to show them exactly who I was. I didn't go home that night. Instead, I drove to the Meridian Asset Management office, using my key card to access the building. The trading floor was empty, but the Bloomberg terminals were still running, displaying the after-hours numbers that would determine Monday's opening positions. I sat at my desk and opened my laptop. If my family wanted to see who I really was, I'd show them. I started with a simple Google search. Vivienne Ashford Meridian Asset Management. The results were more extensive than I'd expected. Financial news articles, conference speaking engagements, industry awards. I'd been so focused on my work that I'd forgotten how visible I'd become in the financial world. There was a piece from Wall Street Journal about my alternative investment strategies, a Forbes article that mentioned me as one of the rising stars in asset management, a Bloomberg interview where I discussed market volatility. I screenshotted each article and compiled them into a single document. Then I added my last 3 W-2 forms, my investment portfolio summary, and my bank statements. Not because I owed anyone an explanation, but because I wanted to make sure there was no ambiguity about who I was or what I'd accomplished. Finally, I wrote a letter. Dear family, I've attached some documentation that might help clarify any confusion about my financial situation. I'm not seeking approval or validation. I'm simply providing facts. I love you all, but I will no longer tolerate being treated like a child or a charity case. When you're ready to see me as a successful adult, I'll be here. Until then, I'll be living my life without apology. Vivienne and I printed everything, put it in a manila envelope, and drove back to Kiowa Island. The house was dark except for the porch lights, but I knew my parents would be awake, probably discussing the evening's events. I slipped the envelope under the front door and drove away. Monday morning brought a series of texts from my family. My father wanted to discuss what happened. My mother suggested lunch to clear the air. Marcus sent a long message about family being more important than money. I ignored them all. Instead, I focused on my work. I had a presentation to the board of directors on Wednesday, and I wanted it to be perfect, not because I was trying to prove anything to my family, but because I was good at what I did. Around noon, my assistant buzzed me. Miss Ashford, there's a gentleman here to see you. Says he's your father. I looked up from my computer screen. Send him in. Harrison Ashford looked different in my office, smaller, somehow less commanding. He stood in the doorway, taking in the wall of monitors, the awards on my credenza, the view of Charleston Harbor. May I sit? He asked. I gestured to the chair across from my desk. Of course. I read your letter. He said quietly, all of it, the articles, the financial statements, everything. And I owe you an apology, a big one. I leaned back in my chair. Go on. I've been proud of you, Emma. Proud of what you've accomplished. But I realize now that I never showed it. I never told you. I suppose I was worried about you. Worried about what? About you being alone. About you working so hard that you forgot to live. About you choosing career over family. He paused. I see now that I was wrong. You didn't choose career over family. You chose success over our narrow definition of what your life should look like. I felt tears prick my eyes but blinked them back. Dad, let me finish, please. He leaned forward. You are brilliant, Emma. You are successful beyond anything I ever imagined. And you're strong enough to build a life on your own terms. I should have been celebrating that, not questioning it. Then why didn't you? He was quiet for a long moment, because I was scared. Scared that if you didn't need us, you'd leave us. Scared that if you were too successful, too independent, you'd decide you didn't want to be part of our family anymore. So you decided to make me feel like I wasn't part of it anyway? Yes, he said simply. And that was wrong. That was cruel, and I'm sorry. We sat in silence. Watching the harbor through my window, a container ship was making its way toward the port, guided by tugboats. I'd like to ask you something, he said finally. What? Would you come to dinner again? Next Sunday, just family, no big production, no guest, just us. I considered his request. Will I be treated like an adult? You'll be treated like the successful, accomplished woman you are. And the watch? He smiled. I'd be honored to wear it. The next Sunday's dinner was different, quieter, more honest. My mother had prepared a simple meal. No staff, no formal service, just family around the kitchen table. She'd read the articles about me, too, and spent the first hour asking genuine questions about my work, my strategies, my thoughts on the market. I had no idea. She said as I explained a particularly complex derivatives transaction. I always assumed finance was just moving money around. It can be, I said, but at its best, it's about creating value, building wealth, helping people secure their futures. Marcus was unusually quiet, picking at his food. Finally, he looked up. Can I ask you something? Sure. Are you happy? The question caught me off guard. What do you mean? I mean, with all this success, all this money, are you happy? I thought about it. I'm proud of what I've accomplished. I'm satisfied with my work. I'm financially secure beyond anything I ever imagined. But are you happy? Are you? I countered. He laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. Honestly? No, I'm 38 years old, living in my parents' guest house. With no real career and no real prospects, I've been hiding behind the family name and Dad's money for so long that I don't know who I am without them. Marcus, my father started no Dad, and deserves to know the truth while she was building an empire. I was playing golf and pretending to be an entrepreneur while she was making millions. I was spending yours. The table fell silent. I've been jealous, Marcus continued. Jealous of your success, your independence, your strength. It was easier to pretend you were struggling than to admit that you become everything I was supposed to be. You still can, I said quietly. You're not dead, Marcus. You're just delayed at 38? At 38? I didn't hit my stride until I was 30. You have time, he nodded. But I could see the doubt in his eyes. Actually, I said, an idea forming. I might have a proposition for you. What kind of proposition? I've been thinking about expanding, opening a Charleston office for Meridian. I need someone to manage the local client relationships, someone who understands the Charleston market. The families, the connections. Marcus stared at me. You're offering me a job? I'm offering you an opportunity. It would mean starting at the bottom, learning the business, working harder than you've ever worked. But if you're serious about changing your life, I am, he said quickly. I mean, I want to be. Then we'll talk this week, set up a proper interview, discuss expectations, create a development plan. My father was beaming. Emma, that's incredibly generous. It's not generous, I corrected. It's business. If Marcus works out, it's good for everyone. If he doesn't, I'll find someone else. I won't let you down, Marcus said. Don't make promises you can't keep. Just show up and work hard. After dinner, my mother walked me to my car. Emma, I need to say something. What? I've been thinking about what you said the other night, about us treating you like a child, and I realize I think I've been doing that because I was afraid of losing you. Losing me how? You're so strong, so capable, so successful. You don't need us for anything, and I suppose I thought that if we kept treating you like our little girl, you'd keep being our little girl. Mom, I'll always be your daughter. Success doesn't change that. I know that now. I'm proud of you, sweetheart. I'm proud of what you've built, who you've become. I should have been saying that all along. Yes, I said simply. You should have. She hugged me then. And for the first time in years, it felt genuine. 30, you have time. He nodded, but I could see the doubt in his eyes. Actually, I said, an idea forming. I might have a proposition for you. What kind of proposition? I've been thinking about expanding, opening a Charleston office for Meridian. I need someone to manage the local client relationships, someone who understands the Charleston market, the families, the connections. Marcus stared at me. You're offering me a job? I'm offering you an opportunity. It would mean starting at the bottom, learning the business, working harder than you've ever worked. But if you're serious about changing your life, I am, he said quickly. I want to be. Then we'll talk this week, set up a proper interview, discuss expectations, create a development plan. My father was beaming, Vivienne. That's incredibly generous. It's not generous, I corrected. It's business. If Marcus works out, it's good for everyone. If he doesn't, I'll find someone else. I won't let you down, Marcus said. Don't make promises you can't keep. Just show up and work hard. After dinner, my mother walked me to my car. Vivienne, I need to say something. What? I've been thinking about what you said the other night, about us treating you like a child, and I realize I think I've been doing that because I was afraid of losing you. Losing me how? You're so strong, so capable, so successful. You don't need us for anything, and I suppose I thought that if we kept treating you like our little girl, you keep being our little girl. Mom, I'll always be your daughter. Success doesn't change. That I know that now. I'm proud of you, sweetheart. I'm proud of what you've built, who you've become. I should have been saying that all along. Yes, I said simply. You should have, she hugged me then, and for the first time in years, it felt genuine. 3 months later, I was sitting in my office reviewing Marcus's first quarterly report. He'd exceeded every expectation I'd set for him, bringing in 2 major clients and demonstrating a natural talent for relationship management. Knock, knock, he said from my doorway. Come in, I was just reading your report. And you're officially off probation? Congratulations. He grinned. Does this mean I get to move out of the guest house? That's between you and Dad. Actually, I already found a place downtown, nothing fancy, but it's mine. Good for you. He sat down across from my desk. Viv, can I ask you something? Sure. Do you ever regret it? The confrontation, I mean. The way you handled things that night. I considered the question. No, I regret that it was necessary, but I don't regret doing it, even though it was painful. Especially because it was painful. Pain is just change trying to happen. That's very philosophical for a finance person. Money is just numbers. Marcus, people are complicated. He laughed. Speaking of people, Mom wants to know if you're bringing anyone to her charity gala next month. Tell her I'm bringing myself, same as always. She's worried about you being alone. I'm not alone. I'm independent. There's a difference. Is there? I mean, don't you want someone to share all this success with? I looked out my window at the harbor. A yacht was motoring toward the marina, its wake cutting through the calm water. Maybe someday, I said. But for now, I'm sharing it with the people who matter, my family, the version of my family that sees me clearly, my colleagues who respect my work, my clients who trust me with their futures. And that's enough? It's more than enough. It's everything. 6 months after that confrontational dinner, I found myself back at the Ashford family estate. But this time, it was different. This time, I was there for Marcus's engagement party. He'd met a woman named Sarah at a charity function, and they clicked immediately. The house was filled with the same Charleston elite, but the conversations were different. Instead of dismissive comments about my career phase, people were asking for my investment advice. Instead of pitying looks, I was getting respectful attention. Vivienne, Judge Richardson approached me. During cocktails, I've been meaning to ask you about municipal bonds. What about them? My financial advisor says they're a good tax shelter, but I'm not sure I understand the risks. I spent 20 minutes explaining the intricacies of municipal bond investing, and by the end of our conversation, he was asking for my card. I'd like to set up a meeting, he said. I think it's time I worked with someone who actually understands the market. As he walked away, I realized that respect was something I'd never had to buy. I just had to stop accepting anything less. There's my successful daughter, my father said, appearing at my elbow with 2 glasses of champagne. There's my proud father. I replied, accepting the glass. Always was proud. He said, just took me a while to figure out how to show it. Better late than never. Much better. We watched as Marcus and Sarah danced on the terrace, surrounded by friends and family. They looked happy, genuinely happy. He's different, I observed. Work agrees with him. Purpose agrees with him. You gave him that. I gave him an opportunity. He did the work. Same thing you did, really. Made your own opportunities. I nodded. That's what success is, Dad. It's not about the money or the prestige or the recognition. It's about creating the life you want to live, regardless of what anyone else thinks you should want. Is it the life you want? Really? I looked around at the party, at my family, at the life I'd built. Yes, it is. Good, he said, raising his glass. Then here's to success, however you define it. To success? I agreed. As we toasted, I caught sight of my reflection. In the French doors, I looked the same as I had 6 months ago. Same clothes. Same hair, same face, but something fundamental had changed. I was no longer performing success for anyone else's benefit. I was simply living it later that evening. After the party had wound down and the guests had gone home, I sat on the terrace. With my parents and Marcus, the Charleston night was warm and humid, filled with the sound of cicadas and the distant lapping of waves. "I've been thinking," my mother said, breaking the comfortable silence. "About what?" I asked. "About that night. The dinner, the watch, everything that happened." And I realized now that we were so focused on protecting you from disappointment that we became the disappointment. "Mom, no, let me finish. We were so worried about you getting hurt by the world that we hurt you ourselves. We were so concerned about you failing that we refused to see you succeeding. Why do you think that was?" I asked. "Because success is scary," my father said quietly. "When your child succeeds beyond your wildest dreams, it forces you to confront your own limitations. It's easier to keep them small and safe than to celebrate them growing beyond what you thought possible, but that's not fair to them," Marcus added. "I see that now. See how I benefited from you being underestimated. It meant less was expected of me. And now?" I asked. "Now I have to live up to my own potential instead of hiding behind your supposed failures." I smiled. "How is that working out for you?" "It's terrifying and exhilarating and the best thing I've ever done." "Good. That's what growth feels like." We sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars appear in the darkening sky. Finally, my mother spoke again. "Vivienne, I want you to know something." "What?" "That watch, the one you gave your father, he wears it every day." I looked at my father, who rolled up his sleeve to show me the vintage Cartier on his wrist. "Every day," he confirmed. "Not because it's expensive, but because it reminds me of the night my daughter taught me what real strength looks like." "And what does real strength look like?" I asked. "Like walking away from people who don't see your worth. Like refusing to accept less than you deserve. Like building a life so magnificent that people have no choice but to recognize your value, even if those people are your family. Especially if those people are your family." A year later, I was featured on the cover of Charleston Business Journal as Executive of the Year. The article detailed my rise in the financial world, the expansion of Meridian's Charleston office, and my mentorship of young professionals in the industry. But the quote that made me proudest wasn't about my financial achievements or my growing client base. It was this: success isn't about proving yourself to others. It's about refusing to accept their limitations as your own. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is walk away from people who can't see your worth, even if walking away means they finally learn to look. The article included a photo of me in my office, wearing the vintage Cartier watch that had started it all. I'd bought it back from my father, not because I needed it, but because I wanted the reminder of the night I stopped apologizing for who I was. Marcus had been promoted to vice president of client relations, and Sarah had started working part-time at the firm while finishing her MBA. They were building something together, a partnership based on mutual respect and shared ambition. My parents had started a foundation focused on financial literacy for young women. Inspired by what they'd learned about my journey, they'd asked me to serve on the board. And I'd accepted, not as their daughter seeking approval, but as a professional they respected. But the biggest change was in how I saw myself. I no longer measured my worth by anyone else's standards. I no longer sought validation from people who had spent years withholding it. I no longer apologized for taking up space in rooms where I belonged. The watch still sat on my nightstand every evening, a reminder of the night. I learned that the most expensive gift you can give someone is the truth about who you are. And sometimes the most expensive gift you can give yourself is the courage to walk away from people who refuse to see it. Have you ever had to choose between peace and family? Sometimes the most powerful revenge is walking away. If my story resonated with you, hit like, subscribe to Silent Revenge, and share your truth in the comments. Because sometimes justice whispers and still echoes forever. My name is Vivienne Ashford, and I learned that success isn't about proving yourself to others. It's about refusing to let their limitations become your own. Sometimes the people who love you most are the ones who see you least clearly, and sometimes the greatest gift you can give them is the shock of finally seeing you as you truly are. The watch still ticks on my wrist every day, not as a symbol of what I spent, but as a reminder of what I'm worth, and I'm worth more than I ever let them believe.